third year. Would y'all like to join my office in the peanut butter and jelly campaign for fish?
Yes.
So every week you'll bring a peanut butter and jelly jar up here, and September we'll be delivering.
August and September. Yep.
During this month of August and September. And if you don't bring it up here, you can bring it by my office. If you come back by my office, we will take a picture of you and announce your business, if you don't mind, and put it on Facebook. But we're going to be delivering that to Fish for the MARC program, Meals at Risk Kids. So,
Now, just a peanut butter and jelly, can you mix?
well,
Everything, so just one
either, yeah. So just, last year this is the third year we've done it, and it's pretty successful, and a lot of people like to participate. So we'll fill up our table up here with the jars, and then I'll deliver them.
We'll fill up big tables.
Yes. So, and like I said, if you forget to bring them on Wednesday, come to my office and bring them by there if you'd like. Appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry.
I meant to do that last week, and I totally ran out of time. I look up, and it's past 1 o'clock, so I apologize, Liz, for not getting that out a week earlier. So, well, I'm sorry that you didn't win. David's going to need that. He's going to want to skydive.
I know.
And for those of y'all that don't know, David didn't get to skydive Saturday, but he's going to get to go tomorrow. So looking forward to that. Skydiving.
For his birthday.
He's looking for people to go with him.
He's got a few.
I was out there, but the airplane wouldn't start. They tell me they were pushing it off starting.
So if y'all didn't hear that, the airplane wouldn't start. They were pushing
It's a
it.
sign.
Get it through your brain. You don't need to do
It's a
this.
sign, yeah.
And he's even taking his 2 cents.
All right, at this time, I'd like to introduce our speaker, Loren Mixon. I know his father. I've listened to part of his story one night, and I had to remind him that we sat and talked one day. So it's a very interesting story, and he's got some good things coming up. So I'll introduce y'all to Loren Mixon.
Just so I can see a little bit better.
All right.
And I'm kind of short.
And that mic does work.
Okay, thank you. First of all, Larry, thank you. Scott and Kendall, thank you for helping get this in here. What an honor to stand here. I was born in Greenville, Texas in 1956 to a father who worked at, Timco, E-Systems, LTV. So he worked at one or more of those places. My mom was born and raised in Cache, and my grandfather used to stand down on the street at the courthouse and would preach to anybody that would listen to him. I left here, and guys, what he brought me here is going to be the end of the story, but I want to tell you how I got to here. I lived in Greenville, went to Bowie Elementary, went to junior high here, went to 1 year of high school. December 23rd, 1970, my family was getting ready to go, and of course, when E-Systems emptied out on Christmas, everybody was running and gunning. They were trying to get out of there as fast as they could. I was in a car wreck that my mother eventually died from. So my dad remarried. I moved to Dallas, and as soon as I graduated from high school, I go, I'm going home. I'm going back to Greenville. That's where I need to be. Came and lived with my uncle, who some of you know, Mickey Mixon is my uncle. And he took me in like his little brother, and so I came back to Greenville with a real unknowing what I was going to do. I decided to wait on going to college and ended up spending a few more years here. I failed to mention that I was born in 1956. In January of 1957, there was a young lady born, and our families were like brothers and sisters. I mean, we grew up together, and she was named after my mother. So it was kind of a unique situation, but she became a real good friend. And I say that because at my mother's funeral, there was a time where nobody could get me. Everybody was kind of taking care of my dad and my sister, and they go, Lauren's going to be fine. I was 14 years old, and I just absolutely wouldn't break down until she came in the door. She was my best friend, and when I came back at 18 or 19, I realized that I had a different feeling for my best friend. She was really cute. And so I thought, well, you know, I might want to talk to her. And I remember the first time I saw her, she turned kind of sideways and I went, oh, she's pregnant. She goes, I've been married for like 6 months. And I went, well, I guess we'll cross that one off the list. So Angie and I became very good friends, though. And I moved away and went into the military and got to travel a lot. Ended up living in Tennessee for a few years. And I was in Tennessee and a man came to me and said, you want to move back to Texas? He goes, I have a business in Texas I want you to run. So I'm really not a Houston fan because it was just not a good place for me. I loved Galveston, but Houston was just not a good place. He goes, it's in Houston. And I went, okay. My father lived in Red Oak, and it was getting closer to Dad, and he was getting on up in years. And a couple of years after I moved back, I was glad I was here because he passed away, but lived until 89, so he lived a pretty good life. During the time that, all that time that was going on, I would play church sometimes. And when I say that, I'd go in for a little while, come out for a little while. Finally, I got pretty solid. So I started going on mission trips to Mexico. And what an eye-opener. I didn't realize how fortunate I was. And as I progressed and kept growing, I finally ended up in this really small church in Houston. I wasn't really big on big churches because you lose some connection there. You lose some of that thing that I was raised with, which was kind of a hometown connection. So I ended up in a smaller church there and started working with the homeless people in Houston, Texas. And guys, I'm going to tell you something. Everywhere that there are homeless people, there is such a desire for them to do. If you start going out, you have a desire to help them do something better. And that became my desire real quick. And the group that I started going out with, we branched off and we started our own ministry out of the church that I was going to. And I told people, I go, I've hugged people that I know haven't had a shower in 2 or 3 weeks sometimes. And I go, but somehow that smell, that stuff never got to me. I never smelled that. Because I saw people, and what really touched my heart, especially there were tons of veterans there. And being a vet, and you see guys out there on the street, and it's not because they don't want to, it's because they have lost the ability to get to where they need to be. So we started really working with the places in Houston. And, you know, I think that the most important thing that people understand is that everybody has a story. And I've heard more stories about why people end up where they are at than you can imagine. A few years ago, when I started at this church, I had been single for a while, and my pastor said, I want you to do something for me. And I go, what's that? He goes, start praying for her. And I go, I don't need a her. I'm doing fine. I'm doing really good. I'm doing good all by myself. And he said, start praying for the person that God wants in your life. And I went, okay, sounds like a reasonable deal. So I started doing that. This went on for like a year after he started telling me to do that. And one night I'm on Facebook like everybody else is, you know, it's time to go to bed, and it's like, you know, it's like 9 o'clock at night and I'm going. And I saw a picture of Angie. And I went, oh my. So I immediately, I'm sending her a message on Messenger, and she's sending me a friend request because we both saw each other at the same time. And I go, hey lady, how you doing? And she goes, fine. I go, can we talk? And she goes, yes. And I go, can you send me your phone number? Or here's mine, it doesn't matter, we can do this as quick as possible. 13 and a half hours later, I finally said, okay, I'll talk to you. Well, it's already tomorrow, so we'll talk later. The next night it was 12 hours. And by the end of the second night, I was talking to her on the phone, and you know, I'm nothing special, but I hear God. I hear what he says to me, and he goes, tell her how you felt. And I went, no. This is second. I know how to do this. It's courtship. We got all this. And he goes, and how has that worked out for you? And I went, not so good. Well, okay, listen to me this time. And I went, okay. So So I go, look, I loved you at one point. I was chasing you, and she goes, if you'd have told me then, we'd have been married then. And I went, well, you know, our parents were good friends, and I knew that if I was pursuing a married woman, my father would kill me, and your father would kill me too. So I thought it was best that I not do that. We talked for a couple of days, and she was living in Garland, and I was living in Houston. And I go, I'm coming to Garland this weekend. Her mother was 92 years old at that time, and her mom was my Sunday school teacher when I was about 4 years old. And if any of you remember on Henry Street, right down from the train depot, Central Assembly of God was there at one time in that white building there on the corner. And it was a story and a half. It wasn't a full 2 stories, it was a story and a half. And her mother always called me Monkey. And I go, why did you call me Monkey? And she goes, because every time that window was open, you were trying to go out of it. And she goes, the only thing that would get you back in was Kool-Aid and cookies. And she goes, I had no idea. So the minute I walk up to her, bless her heart, 4'11", meaner than the snake, sweet as she can be, but the first thing she does, she goes, come here. And I bent down, and I thought she was going to kiss me, and she grabbed hold of my ear. And she goes, do not climb out of any of the windows in my house. It was a family reunited, and she had 2 younger brothers and sisters and 2 younger ones. She was the middle of 5 children. And the minute that we reconnected, it was like a week. And I was staying in a hotel, and we were seeing each other on Friday and Saturday. The second weekend we were there, she goes, I want to see Beef's Hamburger. We're in Garland. She goes, I want to see Beef's Hamburger. I go, I guess we're going to Greenville. So we drive to Greenville, and she goes, do you remember Larry Allgood? And I go, yeah. She goes, well, I've never lost touch with him through the years. She goes, you want to go by and see him? And I went, sure. And I'm telling y'all this because this is part of the story of where we've come to. Larry and I immediately, it was just took, and some of y'all may know Mike Castleberry. Castleberry and I hooked up. We've known each other for years. And it was just like things started happening. She goes, I want to go back for the Christmas parade. This is like September. August the 19th, we got married. October the 19th, we got married. About October the 19th of 1999. And it was, guys, when I tell you, I could tell stories about fairy tales. I could read you books, but nothing was more of a fairy tale than what we had. It was absolutely incredible because it was like we never missed those years. And as time progressed, we moved back to Houston. She moved back with me, and I told her, I go, look, 2 years at the most, my business is going to be done. 1.5 years, maybe we can cut it down, and I'm going to Tennessee. I lived in Tennessee. The mountains were beautiful, and that was a place where I felt like I was home. And I go, we're going to go to Tennessee. And she goes, I've never been that far away from my children and grandchildren. She goes, more than 30 minutes is kind of not a good deal. And I go, we're going to go to Tennessee, okay? We'll figure this out. She goes, wherever you go, I'll go. She goes, if you want to go to Tennessee, we'll go to Tennessee. She goes, but I'd like to visit first just to make sure everything's okay. We'll go visit Tennessee. In November after that, one Sunday morning, and I'm telling you all this again to get to this final part of why I'm here. One Sunday morning in November, my pastors were, I couldn't tell you what he preached about, to be honest with you. But I just felt an instant tug that I needed to go pray. So I went to pray, and it was like I was just bawling like a little girl. I just couldn't stop. And I heard that voice said, you're going to Greenville. And I went, oh, no, I'm not. No, sir, we don't like Greenville, not going back there. He said, never, ever going back there. I would come in for family reunions. My family still had their family reunions here. And it was Friday, Saturday, and the minute it's over on Saturday, I'm driving back to Houston. I don't care how tired I am, I'm getting out of this town. And he said, you're going to go back to Greenville. And I went, no, I'm not. I'm not going back to Greenville. He goes, okay, you can stay here, and I guarantee you and Angie won't like it here. I go, so I talked to my pastor immediately after service, and I go, Pastor, I got something to tell you. And he goes, okay. And I go, it's time for me to leave here. And he goes, I know you're going back to Greenville. And I went, how did you know? And he goes, well, I knew 2 or 3 months ago that you were getting ready to leave. And he goes, Angie was just the icing on the cake to make me understand that it was time for you to go. So we started making plans to move back to Greenville. We found a house, and we're talking about through the Christmas time, and I said, I'm not going to move till after the first of the year. So I was very blessed. Angie had rheumatoid arthritis, and it was very painful, but on really good days, and she'd have a few good days, we went to Arkansas, we just drove. We had, for Christmas, we decided we don't want to be around kids, grandkids, we don't want to be around anybody, so we booked a room in Galveston. We stayed in Galveston for Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and the day after Christmas. Life was really good. I'd stepped away from the business. Once we got married, I go, look, guys, I'm retiring early. I'll see y'all later. I happen to own the business, so I can say that. I just want my paycheck. But y'all run the business and just send me my paycheck every week. We're good. God had blessed me to the point to where I could spend time with her. So we started coming back to Greenville, and when we came back for the Christmas parade, it was kind of odd because everything was going the wrong direction to me. They went down Johnson and came back up Lee instead of going down Lee and coming back. You know, so it was like, it's kind of different, but it's still Greenville. And when I said I saw these two homeless men, it was during the time we were here for the Christmas parade. I'm driving over by McDonald's and I see these two guys walking. And I stopped because there was something in my spirit that said, you need to stop. And I go, you guys need something to eat? Yeah. So I go over to McDonald's, get some food, and I go, you know any veterans out here? And they go, their two hands went up, and I went, wow. And immediately I knew what I was coming back to Greenville for. I immediately knew it was time to come back and help people get on their feet again. I really liked what you said, and I know it's part of what the Rotary Club stands for. Service above self. And God made me understand real quick that it was not to be anything of me, but I was to be a servant.
That's right.
So we came back, Angie and I came back. Well, we had a house, and 10 days before closing, and some of you real estate agents will understand this, 10 days before closing, I already had a closing date on my house in Houston. 10 days before closing, the person that was going to sell us the house pulled the contract. And it was like, we have no place to go, and we've already sold our house. We're closing on our house in 2 days. We ended up staying, and I had a real estate agent that was a friend of mine, and he found us another house. Wasn't exactly what we were looking for, because it had this kind of tiny, small living room, but then they had added this huge room on the back that's 24 by 32. And it was like, well, what are we going to do with that? And my wife said, we're going to make that the Cowboy Room. And I go, no, let the Cowboy Room be the little room. My wife, in her infinite wisdom, she goes, people are not coming through the front door of my house and walking through a Cowboy Room to get to the living room. Your Cowboy Room's going down there. Okay. So we take over, we get the big room, and we're still not real happy. We decided we can live here for a few years, and then we'll go somewhere else. We finally got moved in. April the 13th, we moved into the house. And I'm trying to find a nice way to say that my wife was a hoarder, but she really wasn't a hoarder. It was just all in boxes. But there was a lot of stuff. You know, and it was stuff it wasn't stuff that I accumulated. It was stuff that she had accumulated before I ever came into the picture. So it was like 3 U-Haul trips later. Everything's in storage or it's getting into the house. We closed on April the 13th and we started moving in April the 14th. Anybody that's familiar with rheumatoid arthritis will tell you it's probably one of the most, it's a real different disease because it's uncontrollable. There's not a cure for it. And some days are really, really good and some days aren't so good. And I got used to that kind of lifestyle. Some days were really, really good. When they were really, really good, she was going, I want to unpack some boxes today. We'd bring in 1 or 2 boxes and she'd get 1 or 2 of them done. She goes, I still feel good. I'm not unpacking any more boxes. I want to go out. So we went out to number 5 and had a picnic. We went out to the reservoir. We drove to Tawakoni. We drove to, We just did things as her health would allow. And I'd talked to her doctors. We'd been to several doctor's appointments, and they go, this won't kill her, but it'll be extremely painful for the rest of her life unless we can find one thing that will stop this. On May the 16th, which was a Saturday, the 15th, she had a really bad day on that Friday. And there was one where she goes, I just can't do anything today. And I go, you don't have to do anything. It's okay. We're not going to rush to get in the house. And I want to add one thing too. During that time, the group of people that we've been hanging around here asked us to pastor a church. My pastor in Houston ordained us, so we both came back as ordained ministers, and we were meeting at his house. There were 8 of us, but it was a tight-knit group. And we saw what was going to happen down the future. We knew the future was going to be good. So on May the 16th, which was a Saturday, she got out of bed and she goes, I'm not getting dressed today. I'm going to put my robe on. I'm going to sit in this lazy boy all day. And I go, you do whatever you need to do. We went to bed on that night, and Angie would get up periodically during the night because sometimes walking would help. It was something that would help her, so she'd get up and she'd walk. And that night she walked, and the most comfortable place was in that recliner. She goes, I'm going to sit in the recliner. And I go, I'm going to come sit in there with you tonight. We sat in there, and Angie would periodically go to sleep 15 or 20 minutes, and the pain would get so bad it would wake her up. And I was sitting in the recliner next to her, and she goes, I need a drink of water. She goes, I'm really thirsty. I go, baby, I already got you a drink of water here. And she took the drink. She goes, I'm so glad we got together. This has been so much fun. And 2 minutes later, she goes, baby. And she locked up. And 20 minutes later, Larry and I and my stepson were sitting in the hospital, and the doctor came out and he goes, we did everything we could do. We had been together only 10 months. We'd been back in Greenville 1 month. And I lost the drive that brought me here. She wanted to come back to Greenville the whole time. I did not want to come back to Greenville. And then when I knew I was coming back, she was the one that goes, baby, we got this. It's okay. You're going to love Greenville again someday. And I went, that's probably not going to happen, but this is where I'm supposed to be. To say that I have a love and a passion for this town now is such an understatement. I have a desire to do something different now. I'll tell you why I'm standing up here. We have 3 ministries going on right now. One of them is a place called Angie's House after my wife, which we are doing a benefit this next Saturday for women in need. Connie and I hooked up when I first got here because that was my wife's desire. We'd gone by my sister's closet. They told us what that was about. So we hooked up with them immediately, and after Angie passed, that became my driving force. We have another ministry called the Storehouse, which we go out and feed every Friday night. And Larry's been going with us, and he will vouch for this. We're trusted in the streets now. And they know we're coming. They know what vehicles we're in, and we have developed a reputation with them to where they tell us and trust us, and it's been an awesome relationship. And guys, I'm going to tell you something. Homeless people are everywhere. It doesn't matter where you go. And I understand a lot of people don't like them there. Our goal is not to feed them and keep them on the street. Our goal is to help rehabilitate them and get them back as working members of society. That's what we want to do. And we do that by the example that we set for them. We do that because we come out there and they know we care. And they listen to the things that we say, and we help them do things that other people have not been willing to do. I mean, the first time we went out, there was a little guy came up, and we called him the mayor. We called him the mayor of Homelessville, man, because he came over because he was going to take care of his people. And the first thing he asked me was, "You're not here for a photo op, are you?" And I go, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "Oh, people come out here all the time, man." He goes, "They throw some food out and take pictures, and they go back and they're done. And we don't ever see them." And I had told everybody that was with us, I go, "No phones out. We don't take pictures." That's not it. It's my heart. It's our heart's desire to help them get to a better place. The third place is we have a church. We started with these 8 people. It keeps growing and growing and growing. We decided to go out on Facebook because it's a great medium for us to get out. And we get between 350 and 650 hits every week. Not because of me. It doesn't have anything to do with me. It has to do with somebody that told us this is what we needed to do, and we're getting the gospel out in a different way. And I understand me standing up here and you see all of this, you go, well, he doesn't look like a preacher. I'm going to tell you something that I saw a few days ago, and it's very applicable here. The great evangelist A.W. Tozer said, somebody asked him, what does a preacher look like? And he said, it's someone who has more compassion and love in their hearts than thoughts in their mind. I want to fit that bill. I want to be that person. I don't have to think a lot about what I do, because I know this is what I'm here to do. The day my wife passed away, the day Angie passed away, I even had some of my own family going, well, are you going back to Houston? I go, no, I'm not going back to Houston. My feet are planted right here. We're going to do this no matter what. And guys, when I tell you how the community has turned out for this benefit, it is unbelievable. Unbelievable. I'm going to close with this. I'm going to tell you what our ministry goals are. One, I already told you about the homeless. We want to help get them out. We want to help get them back up and on their feet again. We want to help them every way we can. We want to get them off the drugs, because, I mean, there is a serious drug problem, not only there, but in Hunt County, and we have faced it time after time. There are people here selling drugs, and I mean, Scott Smith and happens to be a real good friend of mine, who is the chief of police, and I told him, I go, why? And he goes, well, we're fighting this everywhere. You don't understand. Well, we have come to know the people that are actually the people that are putting this out on the streets. And one of them told one of the guys that he knew dealt with us, he goes, you tell him I'm going to get him? And I said, tell him to come on. So I went by, and I know where he lives. I went by, and we're feeding homeless, and I just rolled down the window of my truck so they could see my face, and I go, how are you? And he goes, I'm coming. And I go, come on. I go, let me explain something before you do come, though. First of all, God's going to protect me here. He called me here, he's going to protect me here. And I go, we're going to talk about Jesus before you ever get to anything that you can do to hurt me. And I just reached down beside my seat, and I go, and I'm from Texas, and this stays with me too. Just because God is Jesus. So we've learned the things that we need to do. We've learned the streets. We've learned the people that we need to talk to. We've learned the people that trust us, and that's what we're doing. Second one is women in need. That was my wife's passion. Connie and I talked, as a matter of fact, I talked to her this morning. We want to help them build a bigger facility because that one's not big enough. There's more women that are being abused in Hunt County than you can imagine. Connie's going to talk on Saturday because some people are in abusive situations and they don't even realize they're being abused. So we're going to help them do what they need to do. The third thing, the goal of this church. I didn't come here to compete with anybody. I want the people that are in church. I want the people that aren't comfortable in church. If you saw our praise, I mean, somebody said something today, yeah, people's got tattoos, they got long hair, they got earrings. Okay. Does that make them any different than anybody else that needs to hear the gospel of Jesus Christ? Not to me. Not to me. There have been a lot of people, I was one of these people. I was raised in a very strict environment to where I said, I've got to go. This doesn't fit me. That's not the God I want to serve. The God I want to serve is the one that puts passion in my heart. The God I serve is the one that gives me love and grace. That's who I want to serve. And I want other people to understand that. We have a lot of people, everybody, I guess, that's in our church, we didn't take them out of another church. They weren't going to church. And that's who we want to reach. We want the homeless people coming into our church. We have talked to Connie about even doing a service there so that we can reach the women that are in her home. Our goal is we're going to share the gospel with people who would otherwise not be welcomed into places. We're going to talk to people on the street so people turn their nose up at and go by. We're going to help women who are in a situation they can't get out of. And guys, the main thing that we're here for is to share the gospel. That's what we're here for. And we can do that in so many ways. I want to invite y'all Saturday. I know it's going to be hot. We're going to be right across from CB's Hamburgers where the old bank annex thing used to be. And we're going to be there from 10 to 2. And we've got live music all day. We've got raffle items. I mean, like I said, the community's poured their hearts out to us. And every penny that goes in there is going straight to women in need. God just told me something else. I want y'all to understand something. We don't take any money out. There's nobody paid at our church. Not me, not the musicians, not anybody. God's blessed me. I don't need the money. Every dime that we get goes straight back into the ministry of feeding people, taking care of people, doing what we do. We don't take when I tell you we don't take a penny, I don't touch money because that's not my job. We have other people that take care of the money because I don't want to be involved with the money. We know what we're doing. We know what we're doing takes money sometimes. And we've been blessed. God's blessed us with people who help support this ministry. And so we're going to do what we do, and we're going to stay right here in Greenville, Texas, in Hunt County, and we're going to keep doing the things that we're called to do. Larry, thank you so much, guys. I appreciate the time. Thank you. Yes,
I
ma'am.
have a question. Where are you getting the funds, and what are you feeding these homeless people? You're doing that vehicle.
The funds are, it's strictly by support from people, and we have people that, and I'm going to step out here. A lot of people understand tithing. We don't have any overhead. We have no expenses. So we agree as a church body that the things that people give into the tithes, we're going to put back into the ministry right now. So God changes our heart. And as far as where we feed the homeless, last Friday we fed them in about 5 different locations because where Tent City used to be behind the YMCA, they kicked them out of there. You know, Scott told me up front, the sheriff and the chief of police both know what I'm doing. Both are friends and have been acquaintances for years. And I told them up front, I go, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to be here doing this. But after they kicked them out of Tent City, and they can't go back in there for like 60 days. And they'll eventually be back in there. But right now they're pretty scattered. So I made a deal with McDonald's, and we take them chicken sandwiches or whatever. We try to change it up. And we get tons of Gatorade because water just doesn't supply everything they need in their system because it's really hot. We have tarps that we give them. We give them tarps to protect them from the weather, rain, and sun. But all the funds that came in from either tithes or just people contributing to the ministry.
How many people are you feeding every week?
It varies because they're so transient. We may feed up to 25. We may feed 8, 10. But it just depends. Like this last week, we just about given up, and we went to one location, and there's like 6 of them standing out in front. And one of the guys, he goes, y'all have any extra chicken sandwiches? He goes, I haven't eaten in 2 days. So it just depends. And we go down there. I don't want to say that we just go down there Friday nights. I go down where I know they're at all week, and I usually have Gatorade or at least something with me. And my brother-in-law Larry, we're all out there, and we know these people. And if we see them out on the street anytime during the week, we're going to feed them. We just feed them.
This is your personal hygiene product.
Yeah, we make up. I'm glad you said that, Larry. We had a company that donated personal hygiene packs, socks, underwear. It's a huge bag. It's not just a little bitty thing of toothpaste and a toothbrush. It's soap. It's foot powder. There's all kinds of things in there, and we're giving those out right now as well because somebody does.
Men and women.
Yeah, we have both men and women's packets. And they give us, somebody donated those. They heard about the ministry and they donated them to us. So, and you said something about fish, which is someone I haven't been able to get in contact with. But I don't want to be. This isn't about me or us or our ministry. this is about the best way we can use the resources that are provided here. And that's what we're going to do. Yes, ma'am.
So one of the things that we do here in this club, we're very large and mighty as a club, and we love the opportunity to support groups like yours. And so when you mentioned the packets, like with the socks and stuff like that, is that the kind of thing that you would like to have more of? And
Yeah, absolutely.
Could you give us a list
Absolutely,
of your top items?
Sure. As a matter of fact, I mean, I can get something either through Larry or through Scott and Kendall. This is the main thing is right now. I mean, we're starting to look. We understand the heat. I mean, the heat. They're not eating it.
Coming.
Yeah, but we're gonna. And this is kind of ahead of the game, Larry. Larry is like my right arm. Larry pastored a church here, and a big church, and he knows some in and outs that I'm still learning. But we want to have, when it starts getting cold, we want to have soup and like chili and stuff, and we want to have a big parking lot, and not just serve them, but serve the underprivileged. I mean, he did this before, and he was serving 200 or 300 people on a weekend. So, I mean, but right now the hygiene packs are so important. I mean, they're so important because the first thing that goes bad with them is their feet, because they don't ever change their socks. You know, socks are huge, men's and women's both. And guys, there are women out there, and I mean, it's sad, but we're seeing more women. The women population's starting to pick up out there.
Question, do you buy these hygiene packs or do you have to put them together yourself?
These were donated, and this is the first ones we've had so far, and they were donated by a friend of the ministry, and it was, I mean, that's what they do, that's what they make them where they're at. They're kind of a similar organization to us. They don't actually go out, but they make things up for people. So they gave us
Color Irving chairs.
yeah. And they, I mean, and then the package, I mean, we will get to the point where after we run out of these, if we don't get some more, because they kind of spread it around, we'll make up our own package. So, and again, socks, it's just huge because they'll wash them, they'll try to wash them, and they'll do it till they fall apart. If I can answer any questions, I mean, we have posters up all over town. For this benefit for women. If y'all want to come by Saturday, it'd be a pleasure to have you guys out there. And again, thank you guys for the time. I appreciate it.
Very enlightening. And when I sat and listened to him, yes, sir.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say.
Before you close.
Yes, sir. Very enlightening because a lot of us see this in our community and we put binders on. These guys are going out and they're reaching out to them and helping. So thank you for what you're doing.
I failed to mention cleanup. On my list is Rich Carter. And Kim Quimby. And Kim got here early because she knew she was on the list. She helped set up. And Debbie Sickle and my buddy. So we're tasked with cleaning up, okay? Okay. All
right, everybody have a wonderful rest of your week. Please bust your own tables.
This video has been brought to you by GEUS 34. GEUS is your community-owned provider for electric, internet, cable TV, and true local programming.